All right, so we looked at utilizing ARM templates, and I think it'd also be really great to look at Azure Bicep because that is a more productive way to write infrastructure as code. And honestly, I really like Azure Bicep. I think it's really, really cool. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go over back to GitHub. We looked at creating a GitHub or creating a repo in GitHub back in our SDK video. That was a really messy video. I'm really hoping that it's not as crazy as that one, but I don't like editing out any of the challenges here because I want to give you the full idea of what it looks like when trying to work through these things. But what I'm going to do is go over to GitHub, and you should, of course, go ahead and create yourself a GitHub account. It has a free tier. And once you have your GitHub account, we'll make a new repo. I'm going to drop down here and go to Exam Pro. And of course, you'll just have one name here if I have multiple accounts. So there's a lot for me to create stuff in. And what I'm going to do is make a new repo called Azure Bicep Example. You can call yours whatever you like. I'm going to make this public so that you can see the code. You can make yours private if private is available to you there. But I'm going to make it public because if you want to go find this repo at Exampro Co. here and copy it and work with it, you can. So we're going to go ahead and use Codespaces, and Codespaces does have free credit usage. You could do this locally on your local computer, but you'd have to install a bunch of stuff. I like using cloud developer environments, and Azure does not have one built into their portal. Most other ones do, but I think the reason why Azure doesn't is because Microsoft owns GitHub, and so you could just go over here and use Codespaces instead. So this, to me, is like using Azure, okay? So we're going to go ahead and create a Codespaces on main here. And understand, as long as the Codespace is running, we are consuming. So if you want to stop it, you could always go up to the command palette here, and we can just say stop, or it's Codespaces. There should be something here called stop, shut down. I did this the other day when we did that. Yeah, it is Codespaces. Whoops, it's loading, so it's bumping things out here. But if we go Codespaces, there is an option to stop the current Codespace. So I'm not doing that right now. I want my theme to be dark, so I'm going to go to this cog down here, go to themes, go to color, and we'll switch to GitHub dark. And we'll give it a moment to think because it's a bit slower loading. I greatly prefer Gitpod. The reason I'm using Codespaces is because the extensions are going to use the official ones with Microsoft, and it's just going to be easier to show you this here. In most other courses, I use Gitpod. So anyway, once that is loaded and we changed our theme, if that matters to you, we're going to want to do some Azure Bicep stuff. So on the left-hand side, I want you to go to extensions, and we're going to search Azure Bicep. I don't use Azure Bicep a lot, but I definitely know how to use it when we need to. So I know they have a really good extension for it, and it's like it writes code for you. It's the nicest experience I've ever had with an IAC tool. And this is the thing, because Microsoft built Visual Studio Code, and they own GitHub, they can have really amazing synergies for developers. So a lot of times I find it easier to work in VS Code and use their extensions to interact with Azure than it is to use Azure portal itself. And there are specific services like Azure Functions where you really have to use Visual Studio Code. So it's essential that you get used to using Visual Studio Code, whether it's local or in a cloud developer environment. So I'm installing this Azure Bicep extension, and this thing will help us write a lot of code. And it has like templates and other stuff like that. So that's what I want to take advantage of it. I don't remember the extension for Azure Bicep file, so we'll just go to the Azure Bicep website. I'm sure they'll have like a quick start, and we'll work through it here together. So I want to go here, and I just want to know what the extension is. It's .bicep, so that's what it is. So we're going to go here and make a new file. We're going to call it main.bicep. And something we didn't do before, and this is what I wanted to do in the SDK one, but we didn't actually have a use for it, is there's probably like an Azure like kit, Azure tools. There we go. And this is something you might want to install. A lot of these down below here, see how there's like one for databases, resources, functions. If you install tools, it installs all these other ones. You even have one for CLI tools. And it's possible that, yeah, see, like this one will autocomplete Azure commands. It'll do all sorts of fun stuff, even for Azure storage and everything. There's something. But the reason we want Azure tools is because we can install Azure accounts, and this will allow us to quickly log in to our Azure account. Remember before we typed in AZ login, and then we had to get a device code and plug that in? Well, if we have this installed, we can just use the command palette and log in very quickly. And that's what I want to do here. So I'm going to go to the bottom left corner. I'm going to pull up command palette, and we'll try to do Azure sign in. Now, to be fair, I mean, this is not going to do much difference down here, but I think it installed the CLI for us. Because before we had to manually install it, right? So we'll go here, and we're going to have to choose device code. We have sign into Azure Cloud. Let's try this one first, see if that works. And then we're going to say, just so you know, Azure has different ones. There's like Azure China, Azure Germany, Azure US Government. So generally, we always want to choose Azure unless you live in one of these other regions, and you have to use that one. And this is going to open up, and we will sign in. We can now close this window. And I believe we are now logged into Azure. Also notice on the left-hand side, we have this little Azure icon here on the left-hand side. It will allow us to see our resources. We could also sign in from here. We should be signed in. Maybe it didn't work. I'll try this one more time. The extension Azure Resources wants to sign in. We'll say allow. Maybe it has to sign in separately. I don't know. We'll close this. There we are. So now we see our subscription. We are in here, which is great. And we can see a bunch of our services. So, you know, if we had storage accounts, and we do have some storage accounts, we can see them here. This one, I think, is for our Cloud Shell. That's why it starts with CS, and it has a random number afterwards. If we had virtual machines and other things, we could see them here. But yeah, working with functions, you often use them here. We could also probably right-click this and create a resource. And so here, there's a lot of ways to create some stuff. We create a resource group and some other particular things. But yeah, that's interesting. I also wonder if like these are obviously things that were installed. There could be other extensions that we didn't install, like Azure Machine Learning Service or other stuff that could end up showing up there on the left-hand side. So I'm just kind of scrolling through here and seeing what might not be installed. So Azure Container Apps was not installed. Or maybe it was, and it's these other ones that have these little install words on here. But anyway, enough about that. Let's stay on track here and let's write some Azure Bicep. So now that we have that installed, we want to start writing it. So I just need to see a little bit of code to get a reminder here. So yeah, if we start typing, it should start suggesting, and that's just what we want to do is make a storage account. So let's go ahead and start typing that in. So I'm going to type in resource. And so already notice that it is auto-completing. And then let's just go to check here. So the next thing is going to be storage account. And it should autocomplete. So yeah, I remember this being really good at autocompleting. Just give me 2 seconds and let's go figure that out. 1 second. Yeah, so I'm looking at it here and it's supposed to just start autocompleting when we type. So I'm not sure why it's not exactly doing that. We'll go back here. Sometimes Visual Studio Code doesn't do what we want it to do, which is totally fine. Storage account. And it's not really auto-completing. So I'm going to go ahead and save this for a second. Well, there it's auto-completing. So resource, storage. Am I typing it wrong? Is it supposed to be with resources? No, it's this. So it's really interesting that it's not auto-completing, but we could just copy this in here. Okay. I just wanted to show you how powerful it was because I was so impressed the first time I saw it writing all the code for me, which is not what the other ones do, that's for sure. So we'll just paste this in here. And I put a period here. Yeah, I guess I was expecting a little bit more from it, but whatever. I guess we'd have to work with it a bit more to find out. Again, I don't work with it every single day, but I am always very excited to use it. But, you know, the thing that I want to take a look at is let's look at where the actual reference documentation is. And so we'll go to resource reference here on the left-hand side. And I'm really interested to see where everything is. So if you know the resource type, you can just type it here in the left-hand side. That's fine. So we have all our resources here on the left. And so we are trying to create a storage account. So we can go over here. and look for storage account. So that'd be storage and storage accounts. And so here it says to create a resource, add the following to your Azure Bicep. So just kind of getting familiar with it. It looks like this is going to be its logical name, and this is actually going to define the resource itself, and these are all its properties. And it looks like there are some that are required and some that are not. So it looks like, I think, that if we can find this tab back, I think we can name this whatever we want here. This doesn't actually have to be called storage account. So we can go here. It's just a logical name that we reference within this resource. So I can go here and say like storage account AB. It shouldn't matter. What's really interesting up here is that it's going to, looks like it's going to grab the resource group ID, and then what does it do here? It creates a deterministic hash based on the string. So it uses the resource ID to make a random string, and then it's going to say toy launch in the front of it. So I don't want toy launch. I'm just going to put in here bicep. And so I think we can do hyphens. Actually, I don't think we can. And so we should get an Azure storage account that's going to be bicep and some random value after this. And then up here, this is going to pull in the resource group. Now, what's interesting is we haven't created a resource group. It says return the current resource group scope. So I'm not sure how this is going to work if we don't have an existing resource group. But anyway, we've written our Azure Bicep, and we probably want to go ahead and deploy this now. So we could probably just type in bicep down below. That's probably what the command is. Nope, that's not what it is. Maybe it's, what is it? I don't know. So let's go over to, back over here for a second, and let's see what the CLI commands are. Oh boy, we'll say bicep CLI. What is the commands? Just tell me what the commands are, please. We could use the command palette because they're probably all there. Like if we were to go into the command palette and type in bicep, like we get all those commands, but I really want to know what the CLI commands are. I really thought it would be bicep. It is AZ bicep, of course. So it looks like we can do AZ bicep and then just specify the template. Probably main is the default, so if we do nothing, it probably will pick that up. But I'm gonna go ahead and type in that. And so it's interesting, we installed the extension and we were able to log in, but we still don't actually have the CLI. So it looks like we do actually have to install the Azure CLI in here, which is fine. It's always great to get more practice. So we'll go ahead and type in Azure CLI install. We'll go to the Microsoft Learn website. We will scroll to Linux. We'll go to Ubuntu Debian because that's generally what Gitpod or Codespaces or what have you will be using. We'll go down, look for that one-liner, and we'll copy it. We'll go back over to Codespaces. We'll paste this in, hit enter, and that'll go ahead and install the Azure CLI. Now, we are logged in this in Visual Studio Code, and it could be storing the same credential files wherever on the local machine. So maybe we don't have to necessarily log in twice. It might be also interesting to see where that that file is. So maybe we can go ask ChatGPT, okay, so when you log into the Azure CLI, where does it store the credentials? What folder and file on the Linux machine? That's what we want to know. And the only thing I don't like about ChatGPT is that you can't go away from this tab while it's generating. And then sometimes it just gets a bit slow, but it goes out to the internet. So I think that's the reason why it's been slower than previous. I like previous models where it wasn't out on the internet because it could generate out faster. But yeah, this one's hanging on me. So let's go to 3.5. Let's just ask this one. I want it fast. Okay, so it's saying it's in the Azure folder. So that's something that we might want to take a quick look at. The Azure CLI is installed. I'm going to just type in AZ account list and see if we can list our accounts. Okay, so we are not logged in. So us logging in here, wherever it's storing, it's definitely not storing in the same place. But let's go take a look at that Azure profile directory. So I'm going to bump up the font a bit. I realize it's really small. And I'm going to go ahead and say cd and then make a tilde that is above your tab key, and you have to press shift to make it. It's called a tilde. It's like a little squiggly. We'll do a /. I'm going to do period for a hidden folder, and we're start typing Azure. And so that folder is there. We'll hit enter. I'm going to do ls to list out the contents, and we have stuff here. I can do ls-la to list it in a nice, beautiful list. And we don't want, no, that looks fine. And so I'm kind of interested where it's storing that configuration, probably in the config directory. So I'm going to just cd into config. Oh, maybe it's not a folder. I thought that was a folder. It is not a folder. Okay, so let's do cat to print out the contents. Cat stands for concatenate, I think. And so that doesn't store it. Does the AZ JSON file have it? Nope, that doesn't have it. But to be fair, we haven't logged in yet, so maybe the file will appear after we log in. So that's okay. What I'm going to do is go ahead and type in AZ login, and we'll say use device code, because I believe that's the flag we have to use. And we'll go ahead and copy this link. We'll go to the top here and paste it in to one of our available tabs. We have to go back and provide this code. And we'll go click next, and we'll click on our account. We'll say continue. We'll go back over to here, and we'll give it a moment to think. There we go, we are logged in. So now what I want to do is type in ls, and it looks like there's more stuff there. It looks like there is. And did we have this before? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, there's definitely more stuff here. The new thing that's here is clouds config, so I'm just going to cat that. Let's see what's in there. So it at least tells us this is our default subscription, so we at least know where that's coming from. Let's cat the config. Let's see if anything's changed in there. That's the same. Let's cat AZ JSON. There's still nothing in there. So it'd be really nice to know exactly where it is. Normally, other ones will tell you exactly where they are, and you can literally open them up and see the information there. I guess we could also just cat out the session. No, nothing. So anyway, it is stored somewhere. Where it is, I don't know. Does it really matter? No, but it's nice to know exactly where it is so that, let's say you wanted to delete it off your computer or something, but it's stored somewhere. Anyway, we should now be logged into Azure, so we'll go ahead and type in Azure AZ Bicep. I still feel like it should have told us the commands even if we weren't logged in. And I was hoping that it would print us out the subcommands. Let's try to do help and see if it actually does that. Okay, so it does. You just have to give it the help flag. And so we have a few options. We can do build a bicep file, build the bicep param file, decompile. So if we already had an ARM template, we could turn it back into a bicep file. That sounds really cool. I like that idea. Format a bicep file. You know, if there's something wrong with it, it could tell us if the format's correct. Install the bicep CLI, which I thought it already was installed. Let's go ahead and try that first, because maybe that's why I couldn't just type in bicep. Okay, so now what happens if I type in bicep? No. So why did I install it if it was already like that? Bicep. I'm hitting tab to autocomplete to see if anything's there. Bicep CLI. Well, whatever. I mean, we kind of still already have it, so that's totally fine. So we'll go ahead and type in bicep AZ bicep build. And it wants a file, totally fine. So we're going to give it a file. Build a file, and print all of its outputs to SD out. I don't think it matters if we print them out. So before we do that, I just did Control C to break that. We need to get back to our main folder. So I'm doing cd ... and I'm doing ls. Where is this folder? cd */ I'm so used to using gitpod, I can't remember where this directory is. I'm just going to scroll up here and take a look. It is workspaces. Okay, so to get back to this folder, okay, we're going to go to cd / workspaces. I'm hitting tab to autocomplete, and then this one's called Azure Bicep. It is really not autocompleting here today. Oh, I spelled Azure wrong. Okay, that explains that. I'll go fix that in the Git pod. I'll just rename it. But now we're back into here. So typing clear. So we're going to go Azure Bicep file, and we're going to provide it main TF, or I'm thinking Terraform Bicep. We'll hit enter. And so that's going to go ahead and build it. Is misspelled or is not recognized by the system. Okay, we'll type in ls. I mean, it's right there. Let's go back and take a look at the documentation and see what it wants. Sometimes it might want like the file information, but I don't think so. It just shows main bicep. I'll copy this command. Oh, I forgot the word build up here. That's why. So it looks like it's now built. And so we now have a main JSON. We'll take a look here. And it's generated us an ARM template. At least that's what it looks like. Yep, that's what it is. So that looks pretty good. I'm noticing that, yeah, we have parameters up here. So now we can go ahead and deploy this. So it builds it. See here, we can build params file. Not interested in that. Generate params. And install the commands to your CLI. Oh, publish. Maybe that's it. The publish command adds a module to the registry. The Azure Container Registry exists. I'm not sure if that's useful. I think that's if we want to reuse a template for later. Kind of like how we had those template specs, I think. Okay, so if Azure Bicep just generates out the files, I'd imagine that we just probably deploy it the regular way using ARM templates. So I'll be back in just a moment. Most other IAC tools, like they'll let you build and deploy, but maybe Azure Bicep just compiles out templates. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so I just quickly asked ChatGPT, and yes, it did confirm it. My suspicions were correct. Azure Bicep is just generating out the resource template, and it looks like we're going to have to deploy it the regular or old-fashioned way here. So now here's a question. Could we actually use Visual Studio Code to deploy this? So if I right-click this, could we deploy somewhere with this? So that's what I'm really curious about. Let me go find. All right, so I believe there's a few ways we can do this. Of course, we could go and just deploy it the old-fashioned way by using this AZ deployment group. I was looking around myself, and I just typed in Bicep here. And I also noticed that they had a deploy step. So maybe it can do a direct deploy, maybe not through the CLI, but maybe it can do it through Visual Studio Code. There should be one for ARM templates in here. It's not showing up. I mean, ChatGPT seems to think that it can, but maybe there is another extension we're missing. So let's type in Azure. So we have Azure Tools. Is there one for developer? Let's go back here and take a look. So there's one here. It says Azure Resource Manager. Oh, it's an extension. Well, I thought that'd be installed already. Then that would be a really useful one to have here. So we'll say Azure Resource Manager. I thought it was there, but I didn't see it on the side. So this seems like a really good plugin. This is probably something I'd want to have. Let's go ahead and install this one. 1.5 million views. Yeah, I believe so. It's by Microsoft. I'm surprised it doesn't get installed with the tools. Oh, it's in preview. Okay. So I imagine when this is out of preview, I bet when you install Azure Tools, it will be installed there. Now, I've said previously, if there's a preview tool, you should try to avoid it because it might not be there in the future. This one, I think we can kind of get away with utilizing it. It might be the future and it's no longer in preview. So we'll go back over to here. And do we have any changes here? No, but if we go into our command palette, let's type in ARM deploy now. It was saying that that's something that we could do. Azure Resource Manager. Install this extension. Type in ARM deploy in our command palette. We did that. Yeah, so it doesn't show up. So, preview feature. ChatGPT might be telling us something else. We are using 3.5, so it might not be telling us the full truth there. And I don't really see any changes on here, so I guess we're not going to worry about that. But I would like to try the bicep deploy. So we'll type in just deploy here and scroll on down. We have deploy bicep file. Let's see what happens if we do that. And so please enter the name of the deployment. Sure, we have to name the deployment. Good. Create a resource group, because remember that we didn't specify a resource group, so we'll have to create one on the fly here. So let's do that. We'll call this my bicep RG, RG for resource group. It's now going to go ahead and deploy that. It says deploy failed. Provider's description does not have the resource type resource groups. Okay. That is something I was not expecting. Let's go ask ChatGPT and try to save us some time. So says check your bicep template file, ensure that you have defined the resources correctly. That is not useful. Maybe it's because it's not registered. So maybe when we use the UI, it will automatically register things when we use it, but we create resource groups all the time, so it's kind of surprising if that wouldn't be registered. So we'll go over to our subscription, and I'm just going to double check this here, but I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference. We'll go over to our, we're in our subscription. I'm looking for providers. There it is, resource providers. Sometimes there's like another extra blade. They call these blades over here, by the way. And so I was getting a bit confused. And so ChatGPT is suggesting maybe resources is not registered, which to me seems crazy. Oh, it is. It's right there. So I'm not exactly sure what it's complaining about. The other thing is that maybe Azure Bicep isn't logged in. So, I mean, that seems like a possible option. So maybe we'll just go stick with the usual way, which is using the Azure, this Azure deploy method. So I'm going to scroll back up here, and we have this command. Now, we did install in here in extensions, or I think it came installed, was the Azure CLI. And what that will do is when we write it out Azure CLI commands, I believe it will autocomplete for us. So here's scrapbooks for developing and running commands with Azure CLI. Create an Azure CLI files and use the following features. Oh, okay, so there's actually a thing called an Azure CLI file. That's new to me. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll just say new file. So we'll just say commands, and I'll just put that there. Rename that like that. That's what it's saying to do. And so we'll say deploy an ARM template, and we'll go back over here, and we'll see if it starts to autocomplete. So we have AZ deploy. It's not really completing correctly. It's just demonstrated. We'll go back over here and take a look at that again. So yeah, this one says demo.azcli. They're making a comment. So IntelliSense for commands and their arguments, snippets and commands. Scrapbooks for developing and running commands in the Azure CLI. Okay, then work properly, please. Maybe it's not installed. Oh, we have to install it. Sorry. I thought we already had it installed. That's why. So we'll go back over here. And so now our comment is showing up. So we'll type AZ deployment. I mean, we probably want to create, right? It will have to have a name. So we'll just say my RG, my bicep deployment. We'll probably have to have a location. So we'll just say, probably should place it in the same place as this one. This does not have a particular location, so it'll probably default to wherever the resource group is. Yep. So we'll say it's East US. There we go. There's probably something else we need. I'm not really sure. Let's go back and see what ChatGPT was asking for. The template, of course. We'll say template, and it technically is a file. So we'll go here and say main JSON. And by the way, we could bring these down onto new lines with this backslash. That allows us to have multiple lines in our bash terminal. Okay. And it also probably wants the resource group. So we'll go here and type in resource. It can't do multi-line. It is not auto-completing anymore. Resource group. Maybe we just hit the limit of it there. So I assume that it could handle multi-line, but I guess when we're doing multi-line, then the IntelliSense, the auto-completion, it can't handle it. So we'll go back over to here, and I just forgot what we called that resource group. We actually did create one, but Azure Bicep did fail the deploy because of some kind of permissions or settings. So I just want to go quickly find that name. Again, notice that sometimes in Azure, you have to be patient. Super, super, super common to wait around for Azure because of propagations in their UI. Super common. My internet's totally fine. It's Azure. And it's back here. It says, an error occurred when trying to fetch resources. Additional details from the underlying API might be helpful. Are we having an issue with service? So sometimes that happens. So we could be like Microsoft status page. Sometimes that happens and I got to walk away, come back to my computer. But maybe it's not because my internet seems to be funny. So, but if that's the case, then, oh yeah, it's me. I'll be back in a moment. Okay. All right, so my internet should be back here. I'm just reopening my connection here to my code spaces. And I'm gonna go back over to here and we'll give it a refresh. And so I guess that resource group did not create. So we do definitely have to create a resource group first. Otherwise, it's not gonna know what to deploy into. And I'm hoping that this reconnects or it's still running. So, but what I'll do here while we're waiting is I'm gonna create a new resource group. I'm gonna call this one my bicep RG. And we'll go ahead and review and create. And we'll go ahead and create that. We'll go back over to our other tab here. I would really like it to reopen here. I'm not sure what it's doing to figure this out. I'm gonna go at the top and just type in github.dev. That's the primary site for these developer environments. So I'm hoping that it'll list the other ones. That's what Gitpod normally does. It seems real mucked up here. So I'm gonna have to go back and we'll just have to type in bicep here. It's under Exam Pro, so I'll drop that down. Of course, you'll only have one. So we'll go into here and let's see if I can find that that previously working code space environment. So it's here, it is active. I'm gonna go back and say open in the browser. Notice you can launch this in Visual Studio Code locally, or if you want to use Jupyter Labs, let's say you're doing something with AI or something, or machine learning, you could do that. So this should open back up our environment. There we go, that's great. And so we created that new resource group that's called this here. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. And I'm gonna paste it into here. Sometimes it's good to put double quotations around these things. I'm not doing that unless that gives us problems. So I think this is everything we need. We need to know the resource group. It's probably recommended to provide it a name. We'll have our location and our template file. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and fingers crossed this works. Of course, we didn't really look anything up. Oh, this one says AZ deployment group create. So maybe we should make sure that's correct. But it did autocomplete create, so maybe that's okay. Well, wait, why is one deployment group? Wouldn't that create, hold on, we can hover over here and get some stuff. Manage the Azure resource template deployment at the resource group. Okay. Oh, that's really cool. If you hover over, it tells you everything there. Well, what happens if I take this name out then? Does this still complete? Starts a deployment at the subscription scope. So maybe both works. Let's just see what happens. It's really nice that it shows everything like that. I really like that. We'll go ahead and paste that in. We'll hit enter. And it's showing we're missing an argument. Resource group arguments. It doesn't like that one. Starts a deployment, creates a deployment, the resource group. Okay, so here we have a create, and then we have starts a deployment, the subscription scope, creates a deployment at the resource group from a local file template. So it looks like if we already have one, maybe this one would have created a resource group for us. So what we're going to do is take this one out, as I really thought we needed to have it, but I'm going to go and see what happens if we do this. The template resource location at line 12, line 17 is invalid. The template function resource group is not expected at this location. Okay, it's not there. I didn't put it in the template. So, okay. Well, what I'm going to do is undo and type in group. So I guess you got to be really careful when entering stuff in because it's going to give you some trouble. And this one looks a little bit more normal with the group create. So we have template file, resource group. I don't know if it needs a name. So maybe I'll just take the name out and then we'll try this one. And we'll hit enter. And unrecognized arguments, no location. Well, I mean, this one has it and this one doesn't. Okay, we'll take the location out. We'll try this. Well, I guess we don't have to specify a location because we've already created the resource group. That's why. So we'll try this again. Making a lot of trouble here. But it's a good way to learn. This is how you should learn, and this is what cloud's like, just goofing around till we get it to work, and then hopefully it's the right way. So this is going to go ahead and run, and we'll wait here. I'm not going to make you watch it here. I'll be back here in a moment, okay? All right, after a little bit of waiting, our terminal has produced some stuff for us, so it's suggesting it probably created the resource, so we're in good shape. Let's go back over to Azure, and we're going to go into our Bicep RG, and we now have our resource. So we've successfully used Azure Bicep. So let's go ahead and delete this resource group. We are all done here. We're going to go ahead and commit what we have so that any future folks that are trying to do the same thing as us can just go get that code base. Good stuff here. Go ahead and hit commit, sync the changes. We'll say OK. That will push the changes. Excellent. And I'm going to want to stop this workspace. So we'll open up the command palette. We'll say stop. So say code spaces stop, code spaces stop current workspace. There we go. And that will stop the current workspace. So that is all good right there. And I'm going to fix the name here because it really should be named correctly so that you can easily find it in the future. Just be more patient and make sure you don't make mistakes and try to fix them the best you can. But yeah, that is Azure Bicep, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay?